Alright guys, welcome back to the Dark Souls 3 all-in-one guide. Today we're going to be going through the Grand Archives. This is a pretty large area, so this is going to be quite a long video. We want to buy some Carthus Rouge first from the Handmaiden, and we have to get this spell, the Carthus Beacon, from our Pyromancy merchant. This will be our 14th out of our 27 Pyromancies. So what the Carthus Beacon does is, it's the same effect you get when you put on Pontiff's Right Eye. Your attack will increase the more you attack the enemy without interruption. So, the good thing about the Carthus Beacon is it stacks with the Pontiff's Right Eye. So you know where we're going with this. We're going to get extra damage on top of extra damage. Now, why would we want to do this right now? Well, the Crystal Sage at the beginning of the Grand Archives, he will teleport away when you hit him with a physical attack. But with this setup, we can kill him before he can teleport because we're doing massive amounts of damage to him in a short stint. It doesn't always work, especially if you don't bleed him out quick enough, so there's a bit of a luck element involved. But alternatively, you could poison him with the Storyteller Staff or some other pyromancy, but this is the quickest way. So my recommendation is to use this setup, and if you don't kill him before he teleports, just go back to the bonfire and he'll respawn and you can do it again. Just bear in mind that it takes 2 spell slots to use this one pyromancy. Now let's go over the setup real quick. You're going to want Carthus Rouge. Now I put on the Witch's Ring, but I don't know if it has any effect or not. But I was getting more consistent kills this way, so let's just go with this setup. You cannot use Green Blossom to stack the effect for stamina if you're going to use Carthus Beacon, because it cancels out Carthus Beacon. So make sure that you don't use any other buffs on top of Carthus Beacon, because the game will not allow you to do it. If you do not have this aura, the green aura around you, then it's not going to work. So you want to put on Carthus Rouge and go straight into him. If you get lucky and bleed him, you should kill him. Again, not the only way to kill him, but definitely the fastest and most consistent that I've found. Now we need to go back to the bonfire and re-attune some spells. We're going to need 3 spells, so we need to put on the Saint's Ring or some other attunement slot ring, because we're going to need it here. We need to go back to our stealth setup, which is the Slumbering Dragoncrest Ring and the Lingering Dragoncrest Ring. And we need to get our Storyteller Staff back, but we also need the Pyromancy Glove as well, so we're going to have the Pyromancy Glove as the last in the last slot, because we want to make sure we can switch to it quickly after using the Storytellers. This is what you want right here. For our spells, we're going to need Hidden Body, Rapport, and Spook. Those are the 3 spells we want. So, the Grand Archives. It's much like Cathedral of the Deep, where you have thralls ready to pounce in ambush positions. So we're going to have to take out many thralls to thwart their ambushes. Here's your first thrall. If you shoot him, he'll just run away to the left every single time. So just wait him out. We're just going to go past this gate here and go to the right. Don't go up the stairs yet, because you'll trigger another attack. You want to wait for him to come back. He'll just come back walking down the stairs like nothing ever happened, so you can take him out. Now there's another thrall way up here. You want to shoot him. I don't know how I missed that shot. But you can take them out, but by the time they land, you'll be able to swipe at them and kill them in one hit. There's a chunk up here now. There's a Crystal Lizard with a Crystal Gem up here, and some Twinkling Titanite. Quite a few Crystal Lizards in the archives. Some of them are in pretty hard to reach positions. Now we want to get our bow out and take out this thrall that's kind of low hanging right here. Low hanging fruit for us to take out. The way we want to deal with this area, there's a group of scholars over to the left, but first we want to take out the thrall on the right, because he will ambush us once we start attacking the scholars. So take him out first. We'll be coming back to this area later, because that bookshelf will slide for a secret entrance to a Titanite slab later. And to go Hidden Body here, we're going to poison the group, just to soften them up a little bit. We're not going to let the poison completely finish them off. But we just want to soften them up. And go up here to get this Titanite scale. Now from this position, it's a perfect spot for sniping them. They can't really fire back, and by the time the poison is already taken some effect, by the time you start shooting them, they're going to die in one hit anyway. Except for the leader, which is over there, closest to the pool of wax. He'll take a few more shots, but the rest of them should go down with one hit. Poison doesn't necessarily have to kill the enemies. It's really good for softening them up for just easy kills. Now the scholars sometimes have a chance to drop the scholar's candlestick. This candlestick is actually a dagger, and it does more critical damage than the bandit knife, if you can believe it. So it's pretty cool to use, and it has a secondary function that gives you a light source. Now you definitely want to rapport this Lothric Knight because he is quite tanky and difficult to deal with, especially when he starts buffing with crystal magic weapon. He can cause quite a bit of damage to you and kill you quite often. So let's get rid of him now and get the Crystal Chime. We'll be using this later. The Crystal Chime is unique in that it allows you to cast both miracles and sorceries, so you don't have to switch to, you know, a talisman to do a miracle or a staff to do a sorcery. It can do both. You definitely want to duck your head in some wax here, because in the archives there are these hands that come out of the books and will cause curse to you, and it's just very annoying, and you have to keep redunking your head in, and if you take a lot of damage you'll lose your head of wax earlier than you'd like. There's a crystal lizard up here. We want to circle around and get this crystal lizard. Now for our next pyromancy, the Power Within. Now the Power Within has been severely nerfed from Dark Souls 1, and so you're not going to get like 50% extra damage. They nerfed it pretty heavily here. But it's in this area with the Witch's Lock. You have to pull the lever there to open the secret entrance. Now this next section of the archives can be quite irritating because you have thralls in all these different positions ready to pounce on you, and the scholars are there as well, so you're having an ambush situation you have to deal with multiple times. However, we're going to use a special strategy where we don't have to deal with any of it. First we want to take out these scholars here. You want to kick down this ladder, and you want to come in here. Get the chunk, and let's go ahead and put on the Hawk Ring. Make sure you have the Hawk Ring and feather arrows. We can pretty much snipe most of the enemies without going too much further here into the archives. But you also want to have the sword ring on for extra damage. You can snipe this guy first. He can still hit you from here, so be careful. But if you're patient, you'll be able to kill him here. He's quite tanky as well. But right here, there's a trick. If you shoot these two thralls here, they will commit suicide. You don't have to deal with them. Every single time they have committed suicide on me, so I know this works consistently. As long as you hit them from here, they'll commit suicide. Now we can also take out this scholar from here as well. And he cannot hit you with his spell from here. It will dissipate into the air. And if you look over here, there's two thralls. You can shoot this one. Sometimes he'll fall off, but most of the time he'll just sit there and you can shoot him again. And you can take this next scholar out as well. You have to time your shots though to get him just as he's walking. But again, he cannot shoot you from here. This is an area where the Hawk Ring really shines. Now we can't take out every thrall from here, but there is another way to ambush a group of thralls that we're going to take care of in just a bit. But let's go ahead and take this crystal lizard out. You got to be careful with the hands since we don't have our wax head anymore. You want to stick to close to the staircase here. You can snipe this thrall from here. Now, here we go. There are two thralls up here. You cannot shoot them from here. They are invincible. So we're going to get them in a little bit, but we're going to come back around. Now we can't get the lever without taking damage there. So we're going to come back to this area too. We have to pull that lever to get the Titanite slab entrance to open. But we don't have a wax head right now, so we're going to have to go dunk our head in some wax in a bit. But first, let's go ahead and take this next thrall out. This is the one that we couldn't see when we started sniping initially. But they're very annoying enemies. They'll throw black firebombs at you from afar, and you'll have the scholar shooting spells at you as well. So by using that strategy with the Hawk Ring, we don't have to deal with any of it. Now we can climb up here, and believe it or not, there's another section later on in the area where you'll have to deal with a group of scholars. Now we're just going to kill the first one. You can kill two of them, but it just takes more arrows, and I just didn't want to deal with it. But this first one we can take out. We're thinning the group a little bit well before we get there. Just make sure you don't sit at a bonfire if you're going to kill these enemies ahead of time. Now we still don't have a wax head, so we want to poison this next scholar through the wall here, through the bookshelf. Because we get close to that scholar, we're going to get cursed by the hands and take damage, and we don't want to do that. So now let's get our human pine resin out, because we're going to be taking on one of those boreal knights. Pain in the ass, them guys. They're very difficult to deal with. One of the toughest enemies to deal with in the game, in my opinion. Just their moveset is so weird, hard to nail down, but we're going to use dark because that's what they're weak to. The main thing is try not to get frostbite on you. Put your shield up when you can. If you're about to take a hit, see, they stagger you too. It just makes it really hard. Plus, you have the hands that are coming out from the sides, so you can't really use the entire area to your advantage. You have to be wary that you don't get too close to the edges. But patience, just keep trying to get behind them. Attack when you can with dark. Should go get the Outrider set. Now if you don't want the Outrider set, you could just use Hidden Body, or just run over here and get the next sorcery, the Soul Stream. That's the only thing that it was guarding, so up to you. Now this scholar is almost dead from the poison. We're going to get our bow back out. Because the poison just didn't quite kill him. We'll come back to get the item later once we have our wax head. Now make sure to get the Titanite chunk right there to the left of the ladder. I missed it several times coming through this area. I don't know why, but I did. Now the next ring, the Scholar Ring. Your 57th ring. It'll be in behind this bookshelf, but you don't have to deal with this knight at all, but I just like to soften him up with some poison because I had to come back through this area anyway, so I'm going to get some free souls out of him. But you can completely ignore this guy. But I like having fun in Dark Souls, so we're going to poison him and just come back later. He'll be near death. Pull this lever. Now these are the two thralls that we couldn't kill earlier, but now we can ambush them. And get the ring. And we've opened up the shortcut for later. Now we can dunk our head now. And we can get the Titanite slab area unlocked. That's what we're going to do now. Now once we pull this lever, the entrance will open. You can actually see it from here. But first we're going to go get that Titanite scale that was guarded by that scholar earlier. We didn't have the wax head, so we didn't want to go in that area. And make sure to pick up the Titanite chunk I keep missing. right there to the left. Now we're going to get, well, you don't have to cast Spook here, but I guess you could take some fall damage here if you miss the drop, but it's pretty easy to get this Crystal Lizard. Just drop down. He's already scurried off though. But you want to drop down here and get the Crystal Lizard. He has been alerted to our presence already, and there he is. And we'll get 2 scales from that lizard. Now we're back in this area where we killed those scholars at the beginning, where we poisoned them, and this is also where the Titanite slab is located. Where that thrall was, where we sniped first. He's right here. There are 2 additional slabs in the archives that we're going to get. So we should end up with 3 Titanite slabs by the end of this area. Now, I knew there was a chunk around here, and I couldn't find it for whatever reason. But I come back and found it. It's literally right in front of me to the right there. And I missed it. But I come back and get it later. You want to make sure you reapply the wax to your head, because the area we're going into next is filled with those hands that will curse you. But we want to make our way back up top. Now we're going to go get one of my favorite weapons from Dark Souls 1, the Avalon. I recommend casting Spook here because you could actually fall to your death in this next section if you don't have the cat ring or the Spook. It's better to just roll off and roll forward there. And because we're backtracking through an area again, we're going to get that chunk that we missed earlier that I couldn't find. And you can see it right there as you're climbing up the ladder. You can actually see the shiny. That kind of gave me an idea of where it was. It's where you fought that Lothric Knight. Now, while Titanite chunks are a somewhat rare commodity right now, once we get to Archdragon Peak, we'll be able to get the Dragon Chaser's ashes, and once we give them to the Handmaiden, we'll be able to purchase not only chunks, but also Titanite scales. And even though they're very expensive, we really won't have to worry about souls pretty much. At the end of this area, you're going to have Winged Knights that you can farm that will give you close to 100,000 souls per trip. Now here's the chunk to the right. Now it's very important to go ahead and wax your head again, because you have to go through a couple of areas that have an excessive amount of those hands that curse you. In fact, I kind of made a mistake here by opening up the shortcut before getting the Fleshbite ring, which I highly suggest you go ahead and get the Fleshbite ring before opening up the shortcut so that your head of wax does not disappear. So while we're on our way to the next area, let's go ahead and talk about leveling for the boss coming up, the Twin Princes. So up until this point, anytime we've needed to use dark damage, we've used human pine resin. But we're about to do something better for dark damage. Once we get our faith to 25, we will be able to use the Dark Blade. Now the Dark Blade in itself is just like human pine resin. However, Dark Blade is a miracle, and miracles can be boosted with rings, and we're going to stack the effect with 2 rings. So if you don't have your faith at 25, we need to get it there. If you don't have a head of wax at this point, you need to go back and put your head in some wax, because this is an area where you're going to have a ton of those hands that are going to curse you. But here, we're just going to go ahead and poison all of these scholars that are standing around. We've already killed one from afar. But you can see there's just tons of these things. Of course, if you don't want the soul item, you don't have to come back here anyway. But here's where I made my mistake. I highly recommend you go up to the next area and go ahead and get the Fleshbite ring, because you're going to need the head of wax again. And I decided to go open up the shortcut. So by doing that, my head of wax disappeared, and I had to end up taking loads of damage from the hands because I wanted to get the Fleshbite Ring. But the Cursebite Ring that you got in the Profane Capital will help. But by opening up this shortcut, you will be able to go right back to the very beginning of the area where we killed the Crystal Sage. This area is very much like Cathedral of the Deep. You'll have one bonfire and multiple shortcuts. I actually probably could have still made it had I not stayed behind and shot these guys. I really didn't need to do this. So really this is my own fault. You can still make it if you rush to the next section to get the Fleshbite Ring. The poison probably would have finished them off anyway. But there is a Titanite skill in this chest you definitely want to pick up. But the Fleshbite Ring is right up here. And once I got up here, I realized that I didn't have my head of wax anymore. You could always backtrack, but I try not to do too much of that. So, it is a quick run over there, but you're going to get hit by many hands. So, put the Cursebite Ring on if you don't have your head of wax. Now, this next section consists of rooftops, gargoyles, and Corvians. Now, you don't have to fight any of these guys if you don't want to, but we want to get some items, especially Greirat's Ashes and a Hollow Gem. We need to start preparing for the end game, which means grinding for the Covenant items. We need another Hollow Gem. We got one earlier, but we need to get one again, and this is one for free here. Otherwise, you'll have to grind the Corvians. Now, Dark for the win here again, but this one's a little more tanky than the ones you fought in the Profane Capital. But the same principle applies. Dark damage, and put your shield up. Try to get behind them. You hit them enough, they will go down, and you'll be able to riposte them. Chunk here. Now, we're going to cast Spook and drop down into this next area. Not here, but this other area right here. This is where a group of Corvians are and a Hollow Gem. We want the Hollow Gem, and you can just run past the Corvians. You don't have to fight them, but of course you know I'm going to kill them. And there's an easy way to do such. We'll let them kill each other, because they can be reported. Now here's that Lothric Knight that we poisoned earlier. He'll be near death, but he's more tanky than most knights. You can actually throw an Alluring Skull at the edge, just like how we killed Alva, and he'll just run off sometimes if you have Alluring Skulls. But unfortunately we didn't have any, so... He's also got Crystal Weapon as well, so you definitely do not want to fight this guy the fair way anyway. For the Corvians, we're going to use Hidden Body and Rapport combo. Make sure you have the Lingering Dragon Crest Ring and the Slumbering Dragon Crest Ring equipped. We're going to also poison them. Poison the group, come back, and then we're going to rapport the leader. They'll all turn on the leader and kill him very quickly. Then it's just a matter of keeping track of whoever's got the most health and just rapport them until they're all dead. The only way you can mess this up is just not keeping a timer in your head for the Hidden Body. But if you rapport them, they'll still be killing each other and they won't even look at you. But I still recommend going going hidden body every time. Fighting this group is just not recommended because they do a lot of damage. They're scaled for this area, and they do a lot of combo damage to you. And heck, that one's even got a scythe, so he's going to do even more damage. Just rapport them and let them kill each other, or just run past them. Now we're going to get Greirat's Ashes. They're over here somewhere. You're not going to take too much fall damage, but I'm still going to cast Spook here. You're going to do a strong leap. It's kind of an awkward angle, but you should make it if you line yourself up properly. Now we have Greirat's Ashes. There's a scale here, but we have to do some more backtracking because this led us back down. So we have to go all the way back up again. But we have shortcuts to shorten the length. We only have to do one more backtracking, but we're really just going to bone back to the fire because it's just too much of a trek back. And once we open up the last shortcut, we'll be right there at the boss anyway. I'm just going to drop down here with Spook to save some time. Now, you don't need to wax your head anymore. There is no more areas where you have to worry about the hands that are going to curse you. This was the last area right here with the Fleshbite Ring and the Scholar's area. But the Scholar Room, you'll definitely need to come back here later because Orbek's Ashes will be on this table over here. You'll want to get those. But that's not for quite a while because we have to buy all his spells first. Now the next key item of note is your last Bone Shard and your last Estus Shard. So you can just run and get these items if you want to, but there's some gargoyles along the way, and they have a chance to drop their weapon, the weapon that they have. It's pretty cool to use, but it's a rare drop, I think. You have to have some good item discovery, but your chance to get it is here because they use multiple gargoyles. You have like 3 or 4 of them. Pretty sure there's like 4 of them. So it's worth taking them out, and they give you quite a bit of souls too. But it's not necessary if you just want to get through the area. These crystal lizards are kind of squirrely. I can usually only get one of them. You can always reload the area if you want to. Fighting one-on-one is no problem, but the next 2 are together, and so, yeah, we're just not going to deal with that. We're going to run past the last 2. There's a chunk over here, though, you definitely want to get. And it's achievement time. We're going to get our last Undead Bone Shard to complete the Ultimate Bonfire achievement, which will be our 29th out of 43. Like I said, we're just run past these guys. There's 2 of them is just not fair, in my opinion. They can hit you through the wall here, so be careful. But you want to make a quick right here to get this Ember and kill this Scholar. And we can open up a shortcut that will lead back to the Scholar Room by kicking down a ladder. Right here. Now the next area has NPCs. There's 3 NPCs you would need to kill to get their items. But it's not necessary right now, and we're going to cheese the hell out of them, so right here, there are 2 thralls. We can just shoot them down. And there's a Lothric Knight over there as well. This one got a little cheeky on me. But we can just rapport the Lothric Knight and have our way with him. There's another chunk over here. They always have a chance to drop their gear, so it's kind of worth fighting these guys. You never know what you're going to get. However, you're going to be killing an excessive amount of Lothric Knights when you are farming them for Sunlight Metals in Lothric Castle, so you will get plenty of their gear. And you'll get an excessive amount of shards as well, large shards. Sometimes they'll drop chunks as well, but rare. Now for this section. You could fight them one-on-one by bringing them over here, but I found a way to cheese them very safely, and that's what we're going to do. I especially have disdain for the mage. That's the phantom that you fought in the Untended Graves, the one that will parry you and do great magic damage. Now it's time to set it a bonfire. We're not going to do any more backtracking really, so this is it. We need to fill our Ashen Estus up again because we're going to be using a lot of it in this next section. And we're only got like a 3. We're definitely going to need more than 3. Make sure you have your stealth setup equipped here, which is the Slumbering Dragoncrest Ring and the Lingering Dragoncrest Ring. You're definitely going to want that. And you're going to need rapport. We're going to be rapporting a ton of enemies up here. The general thing here is we want to clear out this entire area so that we can bring the NPCs to this section. Because at some point they're going to lose aggro and we can just snipe them until they're dead. So that's the plan. So what I like to do is just come over here and just have some fun and rapport all these enemies and just watch the chaos ensue. But you just got to keep your stuff topped off. Make sure that your hidden body is always active, especially when the Lothric Knights come around, because they will kill you very fast. They have blessed weapon, and it's just not worth it. Once we come over here, we want to make sure we get the Knight, the Lothric Knight, rapported. Once he's rapported, he's going to do a lot of damage to the regular enemies. And the other enemies are going to attack him at the same time. I think the developers made this section for using rapport because this is the best place to utilize it. So many enemies close together. You can use the barricades to protect yourself if you're not have hidden body active. Once this section is clear, we can bring the NPCs one at a time over here, and they will eventually lose aggro, and we can just snipe them, let them use their Estus up, because they're going to drink Estus too, which makes it very frustrating to fight these NPCs. So we're just going to cheese them. Also have the Lloyd's Sword Ring equipped for extra damage. Now, I made a mistake fighting this first NPC because I thought, well, I'm going to get him to half and then I'm going to go over there and just fight him with melee, and I forgot that the Sage will parry you very effectively, so yeah, just sniper. Want to bring this one over here at first, as she is the most annoying to deal with. She has spells and a Crystal Sage Rapier, and she likes to use all of it. She's very good at parrying you. So you're going to run until she loses aggro. Once you see her back off, then you know that you've reached that threshold. Here's where I make the mistake. I say, okay, I got her down almost, and I try to get her before she got her Estus out, and then she parries me and shoots me with a blast, and then she parries me again. She's actually got a parrying dagger, so no wonder she's so good at parrying. Now, that's why I recommend to just back it up and just shoot her until she's dead. Let her use her Estus if she wants to. She'll go down eventually. Once she's dead, she'll drop her staff, the Sage's Crystal Staff. I'm pretty sure this is similar to the staff in Dark Souls 1 that Logan had in the Duke's Archives. Now the next enemy we're going to aggro is a melee guy. He's going to be easier to kill from a distance anyway. Now if you have a whip, an upgraded whip, that's the best thing to kill NPCs with. Bar none. That is the best weapon to kill an NPC with because they can't parry you with a whip. So that's what I had so much success in my Indiana Jones walkthrough, because I used my whip to kill NPCs and never took a scratch. So yeah, don't have the whip this time. Same principle applies. Just back up till he loses aggro. They will not follow you all the way up. And I've noticed they have to retreat to a certain distance to use their Estus too. As you can see, he walked all the way back there to use his Estus. Now he's coming at me again. But then he's going to back up again. But we're not going to let him get back to his little spot. And he will drop the shield, the Golden Wing shield. Now the final NPC. This guy has a bow, so he's going to shoot back at you. But he's still not as annoying as the Sage enemy, so it's still the same principle applies, and he'll drop his I think they're swords or daggers or something. There's like a combo weapon. I heard they're quite fun to use. We might invest in them. I'm not quite sure yet. There are some additional weapons I'm going to be using that I haven't used yet pretty soon, especially in the DLCs. Oh my god, the weapons in the DLCs are so fun to use. For example, the crow talons that you get in the Painted World of Ariamis. Oh my god, those weapons are so good, so overpowered. And I used to call them the Freddy Krueger claws, but they're the crow talons, and man, those things they're broken, man. You can destroy most anything with those things. And they do bleed damage as well. You can infuse them with bleed to get even more bleed damage. But I'm not going to do that because I can always use Carthus Rouge to get some more extra bleed damage. But yeah, enemies like Sister Fried that are a very hard boss, you can rip that boss into absolute shreds with that weapon. In fact, I should probably have just went and got that weapon from the very beginning, but I tried to keep things confined to one area by doing this walkthrough, so we almost got this guy dead to rights here. We'll get his weapon. I am thinking about experimenting with it soon, so you might see it in the future. Now you could open up the shortcut, but we're going to go ahead and go up top and get our last Estus shard and get our achievement for the Estus, the Ultimate Estus. But what you want to do is get your stealth setup back up, because we're going to be, you guessed it, rapporing these guys, because they can be rappored, and they are quite tanky and very dangerous enemies. But why not just let them kill themselves? In fact, when you start farming for souls up here, that's the way I recommend doing it. Just rapporing them, let them kill each other, then finish off the survivor. Works smarter, not harder. But these guys will give you a ton of souls. This is the only place to farm for souls here. You want to rapport this guy right here, closest to you. Just take refuge in this area here. Don't let them see you, because they can hit you through the wall. This is one of the funnest spells I've ever used in a Dark Souls. Rapport. I'm going to play Dark Souls 2 again. I don't know if this spell's in it or not. I'm definitely going to see if it is. It just makes the game too much fun. Again, this is why Dark Souls doesn't need an easy mode, because this is easy mode. Now kill the third one and you'll get a Titanite slab. And here is your final Estus shard over here. 11 out of 11, and you'll get your achievement, Ultimate Estus. Now, the Master of Rings, 59 out of 107, the Hunter's Ring. Before we go down and get a miracle in a cage, we need to go ahead and get this ring here. This will give you 5 extra dexterity. A lot of low-level runs, like level 1 playthroughs, will use this ring. Now for our next miracle, I'm just going to drop down here. You won't take any fall damage from those drops. The Divine Pillars of Light. Never used this spell, don't know how good it is. But it's down here, and it's necessary for the Master of Miracles achievement, so we have to get it. You might be getting Dark Souls 1 flashbacks with all these rafters we're about to drop onto. Luckily, there's no Painting Guardians on them. But there's a few more items we want to get down here. But we have to be careful, because there's one of those worms from Cathedral of the Deep that's going to be firing spells at us. But they are weak to fire, so if you have fire arrows, you can make them writhe in pain here. But we're going to shoot them from here, where they can't hit us. As you can see, they don't like the fire. Definitely don't want to take a fall from here. But there is a ladder that will lead to 2 chests. And I always have trouble finding this ladder, but it's here somewhere. You'll get a Divine Blessing and some Twinkling. 3 Twinkling, pretty good. Now here's where you are probably going to want to use a Homeward Bone and just go back to the bonfire, because there's too much backtracking here. You're going to see where you end up and you'll be like, back to where the Fleshbite Ring is? I don't think so. That's just too much backtracking. And there's really no way back from what I can understand. And right now we just want to open up the shortcut to the boss. So yeah, we're just going to go Homeward Bone here. And get ready for the boss. We have a lot of souls to spend at Firelink anyway. But first we need to open up that shortcut. Another reason we want to open up that shortcut is because we'll also get access to another Titanite slab. So we definitely want to do that. We're going to start getting all of the weapons that we have regeneration properties for. We want to max those out, especially, you know, the blessed weapons and the simple weapons. Or simple items. Even the shield can be useful. Especially when they're maxed out, so... Here, you just run. Just run. We're not fighting them again. It's not worth our time. We're just going to run to the shortcut and not engage any of these enemies. That's the beauty of Hidden Body. Just run past everything. But make sure to reapply here. You definitely don't want to be caught with the Lothric Knights here. But there's the entrance to the boss right there. We'll come back later. But this is the shortcut you really, really need to open. This will lead you back to Lothric Castle. Close to where you got the red Tearstone ring. But we want to send this one back up. And wait for another one to come up from up below. It's just the Sigurd elevator trick we have to do here. This will lead us to our next slab. And then we'll go to Firelink and start preparing for the boss. Now we have a lot of souls, and we're going to use even more souls once we get to the Handmaiden. We're going to expend all of our souls. But first we will need to buy the Dark Blade. Master of Miracles, 13 out of 36. This is going to be our bread and butter from here on out. This is the miracle we're going to use. Pretty much our main buff. We're not going to be buying any more human pine resin because this is going to be much better. Because we can buff it, like I said before, with 2 rings.
Do stay safe.
We're going to go ahead and give Orbeck our 2 scrolls that we have.
Back again. Perfect. Oh, this is Aman.
We'll be emptying his shop later, just not right now. It's going to take about 130,000 souls to empty it, so we're not ready for that kind of investment yet. But you should already have this achievement, but I forgot to label it last time. But if you upgrade your weapon to its max potential, you will get this achievement. The Supreme Weapon Reinforcement Achievement. And we're going to go ahead and get our Dragon Rider Bow 2+5. But let's go ahead and use our souls. We're going to be doing some leveling soon, so... But yeah, let's go ahead and get our Dragon Rider Bow to +5. But you should already have this achievement anyway. And go ahead and give him all your Estus flasks. Now I'm going 13 and 2 here for the boss. You don't need a whole lot of Ashen Estus, but you do need a lot of health for the boss. Now I'm going to start getting my Blessed Dagger to +10 here. You can use your slabs on whatever you want, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use all my initial slabs on my weapons that have regeneration properties. So my blessed and simple weapons will be first to use the slabs. Now, we got to get our Faith of 25. It's a must because we need to use Dark Blade. Not just for this boss, but for bosses going forward. And eventually we're going to get our faith to 30 so we can use another buff, the lightning buff. Now, for the boss, we're going dark damage with the miracle that we just got, so we want to buff that miracle as much as possible. So there are 2 rings that we have that are going to do that for us, and that is the Ring of the Firstborn and Morn's Ring. Those 2 rings will stack the effect. So we're going to be doing a lot more damage with that. So these 2 rings right here. And of course you want your stamina to be topped off all the time. So this is our setup for the twin princes. Dark Blade for the win. We're going to warp to the Dragon Slayer armor bonfire because it's the shortest distance to get to the boss. Now, as far as the boss strategy goes, I highly recommend you lock on to the prince, because if by locking on, you'll know where the prince is teleporting, because the teleporting is one of the hardest things to deal with. But when you lock on, it follows wherever the prince goes. So by locking on, that's already a win for you because you know where the teleporting is coming from. Except for the drop. There's a drop the prince does where you really can't avoid it. You have to be very quick to avoid the slam from above. It's kind of an unfair move, to be honest. But locking on is your #1 tip. Now, the second thing you got to be worried about is the charge attack that the prince does. This attack you can't lock on. If you see that your lock on disappears, you know that he's charging up that attack, and you just have to pan the camera very quickly to find out where he is. And as soon as you see his shoulders start to move going downward, you need to dodge, because you're going to get hit by that. You're going to take a ton of damage, and it's going to be a problem. So that's your second attack you really need to watch out for. Now, as far as the second phase is concerned, it's more of the same. Just dodge the magic. Just go into Roll City. But yeah, we want to buff our Dark Blade here, and we're going to use our Green Blossom. Just don't get greedy in the first phase or in the second phase. I think we only use 2 Estus in this entire fight, so we don't take too much damage. But you always just want to get to the behind. But here's where I was saying I lost lock on, but I was able to dodge it somehow. I should have really taken a hit by that. I don't know how I dodged it. You can block the attacks, but you will take chip damage, quite a bit of chip damage, so it's not recommended to just use your shield. You see, I'm already taking quite a bit of damage just by using my shield there. But here's the charge up. Wait for the shoulders to move downward and roll. You'll never take a hit from it if you do that. When the second phase starts, roll. Just start rolling until all of the magic is gone. We are not engaging anything. We're in defensive mode. You can roll through the fire attack and just get a few hits in. Here comes another charge. And watch out for the secondary attack now that comes in the second phase. I should not have tried to buff in the middle of the arena right there. That was my fault. And again, we're just going to go into defensive mode until all the spells are gone. That's just the best way to do it. Keep an eye on the younger prince to make sure you don't get any magic thrown in your face. While the only way to kill this boss is by killing the younger prince, it's okay to kill the older prince again and have him get revived, because you're going to get a buttload of damage onto the younger prince, and usually it only takes 1 or 2 cycles to kill him outright. Here we're going to get him in the first cycle anyway, because we're using a bleed weapon too, and we're using dark. But try to get the younger prince as much as you can. When they start hobbling like this, you can usually buff again. When the prince goes down, you can do so much damage to the younger prince, they're usually not going to survive it. And that's it. Make sure to put on the symbol of avarice as soon as you can. That is all of the Lord of Cinders done. You could technically go to the end of the game if you wanted to, but boy do we have so much more to do. You should get roughly 168,000 souls here. That's quite a bit. Now, before we place the souls on the altars, we're going to go ahead and buy our last ring from the Handmaiden, which is the wood grain ring. Now, this is a pretty useless ring, but I think I might have found a use for it. I'm not sure yet. I have to do some experimentation. But there's a particular weapon that is extremely fragile. Now, I kind of regret going intelligence here. I really need to get my faith to 30 so I can use the lightning blade. But our next ring is going to be the wood grain ring. Now we're going to go ahead and transpose a soul to get another ring, the Prisoner's Chain. You get this from killing Champion Gundyr. At this point we should have all the rings transposed. Now, once we set all of the souls on all of the thrones, we need to come back to Ludlith here, because he will have a ring sitting in his chair called the Skull Ring, and it is required for the achievement, so we need to get it.
Welcome, speak very well, then take.
It's basically like the Red Eye ring that you used in Dark Souls 2, where it draws enemies to you. I really regret going anything but faith here. I really need to get my faith to 30.
Farewell, Ashen One.
You can always go back to Rosaria and respec if you want to. Once you have placed all of the souls on all of the thrones, you can go back to the Handmaiden and purchase a Titanite slab for 30,000, which we do not have 30,000 now. We used it on levels, but we're going to get plenty of souls in the future, so we'll come back to get the slab. But our next destination is Archdragon Peak. We'll kill 2 bosses in the next episode, and that will pretty much complete all of the base content for Dark Souls 3, except for the boss, of course, the Soul of Cinder, which we'll do at the very end. But we're going to be going into both DLCs. Even though it's not required for achievements, you get so many good items from the DLCs. You got to go. It's just worth it. The rings that you get in the Ring City are amazing, and you also pretty much need to get the Gold Serpent Ring plus 3 before you start Covenant grinding. But there's so many other great items and weapons we're going to get in the DLC that's going to help us in the future playthroughs anyway. If you wanted to go to the Ring City now, you actually could. You don't have to go through the Painted World of Ariandel. You can skip it altogether if you want to by taking the other bonfire there to the left. But we're going to go through proper. But here we're just going to go ahead and get our last ring of the episode, the Skull Ring, which will be our 62nd ring out of 107. But I'm going to go ahead and allot my Estus for the future trek through Archdragon Peak, which will be in the next episode. I'm actually going to show you guys 2 ways to kill a certain boss in the beginning. The Wyvern at the beginning. You can kill it a quick way, or you can just do it the traditional way. But here's your skull ring there. And that's it, guys. We'll be back in the next episode in Archdragon Peak.